Everything Everywhere All at Once is one of the most visually compelling movies of the decade. The basic premise is that Evelyn, an overworked Chinese immigrant, is subjected to a multiverse of other possibilities, constantly nipping at her and distracting her away from her present tense existence, while she already has a mountain of other responsibilities. The plot and tone can be somewhat reminiscent of Rick and Morty, but what's most unique is how it simultaneously captures the feeling of ultimate freedom and horrifying claustrophobia, having so much choice and possibility that you're exhausted into nihilism, echoing this generation's relationship with the all-encompassing internet. A world where you're constantly being pinged and pulled into narratives you didn't ask to be a part of, where if you don't know how to do something, you can just instantly merge with someone online who does. There's no excuse to not be constantly engaged. Everything you could ever want to do, know, or see is available everywhere, all at once, in some format, which is both stimulating and overwhelming. Writer-directors Dan Kwan and Daniel Sheinert created this feeling with an active, surreal visual style that hijacks the audience's attention from the very start and progressively increases the speed with each passing minute, chaotically adding more and more elements, as if they're adding everything to a bagel. So let's examine what made Everything Everywhere All at Once so visually captivating. Let's start from the beginning so we can see how each element works in tandem with the next. The first key is keeping the camera in motion. Unsurprisingly, this involves tracking shots, but it's more than just tracking, it's tilting and panning as you track to show all the different sources of distraction in the room. Without even realizing it, this creates immediate empathy with Evelyn, as we're experiencing the world through her eyes, looking at what matters to her, with her. This dramatizes what could otherwise be very bland dialogue scenes. Even just here, the basic premise is that Evelyn is busy with her responsibilities, while her daughter is talking to her about something else. We've all seen this dynamic play out in countless movies, but it usually involves the actor selling the stress of the moment, while the camera is either static or only tracking a little. But by having the camera constantly in motion with the distracted party, it makes the scene more experiential for the viewer. Secondly, Kwan and Sheinert use a lot of cuts. Even if it's a basic scene with two characters talking, if we're not tracking, we're constantly cutting. Sometimes it's in motion with the action, other times it's from close-ups to mid-shots, or mid-shots to wide shots, so we feel the scene from just one character's perspective to two, or from the experience of an individual to a broader view of their surroundings. They also don't shy away from shot reverse shot, so we get both sides of an interaction, demonstrating the characters are on opposite sides of a conflict. Additionally, they jump cut to another location, where a different scene is taking place at the same time. This all creates a feeling of immediacy, where too much attention is being demanded in too many places, and while Evelyn's attention is split into two universes, we still get multiple cuts in each. If each universe was static, it would be a much calmer experience for the viewer, but by cutting in both, it ups the tempo, and without realizing it, our minds adapt to this new workload, which is necessary for later, when things get really crazy. The key is that each shot in a sequence is either in motion, or has something increasingly visually interesting happening that demands our attention. The third key to add to the mix is focus pulling. Now this sounds basic, every movie pulls focus, usually to show two different pieces of information that are integral to our story in the same shot. It might be the character and the object they're seeking, or revealing something they've just done, or it's to show one character's reaction and then pulling focus to the other. So the audience are gathering information that will inform the next scene and capture the emotion of the moment. But the way it works in Everything Everywhere All at Once is that pulling focus is used like a cut, in the sense that it quickly guides and jolts the audience's attention. We also have the actors choreographed seamlessly with these cuts and focus pulls. Even take this moment as an example.
Hello? Hello, Mom, Dad, what's
No.
going on?
Do not answer. It's one of her tricks.
Joy knocks on the door and alerts their attention. We pull focus to Evelyn and Waymond. The camera tracks further away as Waymond steps into shot. Then bang, immediately focus pull to Evelyn's father in the background. then cut to the door rattling as we slowly track in. We don't get much time to dedicate to each new focal concentration. It all happens fast. Pull focus, camera move, actor move, pull focus, then cut to moving camera as a shot reverse shot. So all three elements are working together from the very start to make even basic tasks feel more fast-paced and stressful, similar to the intensity of Uncut Gems. Now that the basic elements are set up for a drama that's more active than normal, here's how they double down. Transitions. And again, let's explore several different keys individually, and how they can also work in tandem together, all at once. It's not just that Kwan and Sheinert cut often, it's how they cut. The transition from one scene to the next is fluid. These are called match cuts and can be static or in motion, where we match two similar or identical items in one shot and connect them into the next. And if they do in fact match, then the cut is barely registered, as our eyes were focused on the right place at the time of the cut. They also do quick transitions filled with cuts and match cuts, serving as a time-lapse of Evelyn's alternative life path flashing before her eyes, where in every shot there's at least one element in motion. Nothing is still. These transitions feel like one smooth shot, because the camera quickly flies off out of focus, either tilting up or panning, so they can hide the cut in the middle of the moving shot. But lighting is also used for these seamless transitions.
The first universe to make contact with you.
Like here, we flash red and green lights over Wayman's face, so that when we cut to him wearing glasses that also have flashing lights, the cut is barely registered. As soon as our eyes adopt the new information, red and green lights, we're placed in another shot with the same information, but new surroundings. Or in one of my favourite transitions, Evelyn looks through her palms, and using green screen, the small secretions of light are used to match cut into Jobu's world. Thematically, the transitions need to be this smooth, as the whole point of the story is that everything is connected and happening simultaneously. Even here, the lighting is dark, but notice these subtle little flashing white lights in the background. Then bang, we cut to all white. So the lights are guiding our attention, subconsciously preparing us for the next cut. We see the same thing with Evelyn's alternative reality as a celebrity. The small paparazzi lights appear, starting to flash into this reality, then match cut into the bigger paparazzi lights in the next reality. All of this is beautifully planned and orchestrated. Nothing is accidental. So lighting is used to signify a changing of reality, whether it be switching from one universe to another, or our perception of the rules within this universe changing. Like when Joy reveals her powers as Jobu, the lights frantically flicker. But speed is also used to play with our concentration. The story is all about perception, time, memory, and alternative realities, so by fluctuating the speed, it makes us feel like we're in a science experiment. Dramatically, we slow down to emphasize that something significant is happening, and we speed up to create a feeling of unease, like being on a merry-go-round that's spinning too fast. Speed is played with predominantly in action sequences to add to the surrealism and playfulness of the piece. But again, Kwan and Sheinert compound techniques, and even within these action sequences, they don't just play with the speed, they intercut and match cut from the second reality to inform how Evelyn has this new ability, which grabs our attention not just because it's action, but because it's new information, overloading us with all the pieces of the puzzle that had to come together in order for this action sequence to play out the way it is. Now let's see how match cutting, lighting, and changing speeds can all work in tandem to create an effect. Here's a transition that I love, and let's break it down piece by piece. Essentially, Evelyn is about to fracture into two universes at the same time. She pushes the button on her ear, and immediately we're in motion, albeit slow motion. Her eyes spring open. We track in while zooming out, also known as the vertigo effect or the Jaws effect. There's also a wind machine blowing air at her, just to get more motion in her hair, before we catapult into fast forward motion. Then of course we sneak in a match cut to get her through the door seamlessly, jolt her back, now using light to distract from the next match cut, back to the office where she started. And now we have both cuts split on top of one another, so we have two Evelyns. And in order to merge them together, we move the camera, and once again, use light as a distraction. So many decisions and techniques go into a 15-second sequence, but it's worth it for how it communicates information to the audience and establishes the tone of the storytelling. The final element is colors, costumes, and effects. This is where, on top of everything else, Kwan and Sheinert add various weird elements to capture your attention and stimulate your imagination in the way that only the internet can. It feels like sensory overload. You're unable to look away as so much is being thrown at you. Different color lights driving by faces, pink hair, hot dog fingers, blue confetti bursting out of a cop's mouth before he implodes into all confetti. And now we're using match cuts to play with and distort the current reality. And every time we do, we're hit with a new vibrant color palette. Sometimes we even change format to animation, or transform the characters into piñatas, or just static rocks talking through subtitles. And through all of this explosion of color, lighting, effects, focus pulls, and slow motion, we match cut again, rippling through front-facing shots of Evelyn as the background changes in a flash, increasing the speed through dozens of realities. And this is done repeatedly, these interdimensional time lapses, utilizing bright lights moving across faces, match cutting every couple of frames. And yet again we have a wind machine blowing to maintain the feeling of physical motion for the character too. But they don't stop there. Like a bagel filled with everything, there must be more. And now the technical challenge upgrades to match cutting new characters, alternative realities, as Evelyn mashes them together in a flash of possibility. This is simply spectacular filmmaking. The attention to detail required for every shot is second to none. The impact of all of these decisions is that by the end of this visual extravaganza, audiences have just experienced more than they ever thought possible, but in such an instant that it almost feels like it didn't even happen. The familiar feeling of overstimulation and too much information is so horrifying that we, like Evelyn, want to focus more on the beauty of what's right in front of us in the here and now, rather than the infinite conveyor belt of eye-grabbing content, divisive headlines, and alternative realities, all desperately trying to steal our attention away for just 1 second longer. If you enjoy content like this and want to see more of it, please do consider supporting me on Patreon, as it really does make a difference to how much content I can pump out. Or if you can't afford that, then simply like the video, subscribe, and leave a comment down below to help the algorithm do its thing.